Okay, everyone. I think we're setting the right mood, the right tone. People are here enjoy, are here celebrating. And we've done a lot already. We've presented some findings, we've heard from Lisa, perspectives both from research and lived experience. The inimitable Judy leads us on a walking tour to the Bryan House. And this is an unexpected treat. So we happen to be in Sabrina's, not just the backyard, and then the backyard. I'm just gonna have her say a few words. And then we have Mayor Helen Tran from San Bernardino, who's playing a leadership role in the creation of the nonprofit fund that Fontaine and others are launching. So we'll hear from Mayor Tran, and then we'll go.
It's not showing up in the mic. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm just coming back from Boston, so I'm still on the East Coast side, but I just want to say thank you so much for being here today. We're so grateful that you chose our space. It's one of the many conversations that we have here. For the new faces, please make sure you check out our exhibition space. We stay connected. This space is really built for the community, by the community, and we know that we'll continue to thrive. We stay embedded in the community. So we are hopeful that you continue to do work with us more than ever. It's important that we continue to tell these stories, highlight, and work together. So I appreciate you guys doing this space today, and thank you for your time.
Okay, so Mayor Tran, if you come up and say a few words. I've said before, I think this is the largest concentration of the AAPI leaders in the entire ever. So and you're a part of that, so welcome.
Thank you. Mayor Helen Tran for the city of San Bernardino, not too far from here in the paper. And as the first AAPI elected in the history of San Bernardino, that says something. I'm so excited to really hear and know all about what that data provides and how we can move this region forward beautifully together. So I'm excited. Thank you. It's an honor to be here.
Okay. Wow. Okay, so Lisa's going to be moderating this next panel featuring community experts, right? So expertise is not just researchers and academic settings, but leaders in communities every day. So Lisa.
Hello, everyone. I hope your lunch was good. I would like to again say thank you to Austin for his hard work with this all. With that being said, I would love to call up our first community panel. So I can use each one and feel free to walk up to your name tag. So the Loki from Malo. Shirley Fay from ICAA. Alex from Papa Initiative. And Abigail from PVFAO. So as you can see here, this table itself, we may have never seen together this space, these communities together, and these are all champions of the IB. So I'd like to give another round of applause. I would love to start with Abigail here for our first panel question, which is, and you can find the interview questions right in front of you. What have you found most inspiring about the work that you do in the community?
Hi everyone. So yes, my name is Abigail. I work with the Paris Valley Filipino American Association. We are located on the border between Menifee, Lake Elsinore, and Morgan Valley area. So we cover a wide range of Filipino Americans in that region. We're a 27-year-old organization, and so some of the things that I think that are really inspiring about the work that we do in the community is that really throughout, since I would consider myself somewhat of a new resident. I've lived here since fall 2021 in the area, and something that that has been just inspiring to me is just that this work continues to grow every single year. I've seen so many different community events from the Lunar Festival and that ICAA hosts that, but to also vaccine clinics and different even cultural events within Moreno Valley. Menifee hosts one. Every single year, there's always an invitation that PBFAA gets to be invited to represent the Filipino American community, and it's not just within the Paris community, it expands so much. And so, yeah, I think that's definitely about the most inspiring, and also the intergenerational work that we do. A lot of our members in the organization are older, but we have been able to do a lot of youth work recently and work with young adults, which is a super kind of blind demographic that there is within the Inland Empire region. We have a lot of 18 to 35-year-olds in this region that are just looking for communities where they can spend time with one another, getting to know their community members. And I think that this organization has done a really good job in providing programming where we can get to meet one another.
So I will volunteer to be the next. So this is Shirley Fan. I'm from ICAA, Inland Chinese American Alliance. So ICAA's target groups are seniors and youth because they're the most vulnerable and underrepresented groups. What I see very inspiring in our seniors are their integrity and their resilience. So if you come to one of our events, ICAA or APCTC, you will find mountains of food just like today with a huge variety. Most of them were brought by our seniors. They made the art out of everyday meal, with love and care instead of the deals like in our president's book. Imagine this, they uproot their lives from across the world to come to this country where they might not even understand the language. Yet they survived, they built their family. However, the most important thing is that, more inspiring is that they help others. And then they want to build their community. That's what I see out of small businesses here. Normally, a lot of them are mom and pop food shops, right? Like one of the coping skills for my stress management is I like to tour around downtown Riverside for boba, or for, sorry, my stomach just connects to my heart. So I mean, so imagine that, right? Like all of the economy here, a very important part is the small business. What is more inspiring in our younger generation, our youth, like Abby and Amber, we have very close collaboration with other AAPI communities, is that given the benefit of the modern technology and tools like AI, they can actually build more on top of the legacies. For example, like acupuncture, I don't know if you guys go to acupuncture, but I'm into health. So, before, I mean, nowadays, they can actually analyze the functioning elements and quantify those, medicine. And then they can integrate Chinese traditional medicine and Western medicine. And, those do not only benefit AAPI members, they benefit the whole US and the world. So I would challenge the current administration, especially federal, to embrace our diversity, cultural diversity, they are really our assets, not burden. Thank you.
Thank you.
So my name is Lolomi Soakai. I'm the second oldest of 10. My organization is called Malo, Motivating Action Leadership Opportunity. We are basically the first Tongan United, I mean, we're the first Tongan, or the only Tongan-led Tongan serving org of the Inland Empire. And I will keep saying that because if we don't do it, who's gonna do it, right? I will also share that I am part of legacy work, not only in my living room and my backyard, but also in this Inland Empire community. So I will shout out that our first grant was written by our board member, Dr. Michael Pedro Manalo. 20K that came to us to do citizen work, and brought us to the table, where Scott Allen, IECF, Celia, Michelle Decker, Susie Gomez, the whole IECC, and of course, Parthic, when I would be in those rooms where it's like the city officials, Congress people, and then the Lolomi Soakai community member. So that's where I sit, and I at first I was like, oh my gosh, how does this girl who in 6th grade was crying because the teacher was like, why can't you talk? Cat got your tongue. And because I don't know what that means, I started crying. And now I'm in this space where now I can speak. And so emotionally, it's cultural that I want to be emotional right now because this work is emotional. But I'm gonna be all right because this room is full of our peace, right? So when I say that, I'm so honored to sit at this table. Malik, Francine, we do this work. I'm meeting you. I met you. Oh my gosh, I met her at Congress, Corey Jackson's office, and I was blown away by their work as well. But again, it's nice to know that we're not alone in this work. So that's what's most important to me. And then obviously the community who basically grounds everything about me. Money could never, ever fulfill what is being done in my life, with my children, in my family, in my community. So when we do this work and we're fighting for money, it isn't really about the money, but we see what happens when you get the money, So that's where we have to keep it real, right? And so when the most important thing, when I look at the community, it's the collaboration, obviously, it's the meaningful partnerships that we have to stick with, because if it ain't meaningful, get away, don't waste our time, you know what I mean? But also to be able to see how the communities are being empowered because of our work. So we have health, our data comes back, you guys are the most unhealthiest, you guys, most poorest, all that. Keep bringing it, throw it at us, because what I ask myself is, what is Malo gonna do about it? And so our basic need data that we just do on our Google Forms, that data tells me what to bring the community, and like this month, we served 200 people with dental vision. And then we brought the community together to ask ourselves, when our elders, I'll say my dad, when my dad was here on this earth and he was still fulfilling his obligation as a father to 10 children, as a son to a mom who lives in Tonga, and then as a church member, and he was fulfilling all those obligations, who was looking out for him? So if you ever hear about the Kisina Health Conference, that's us playing around with the idea, what does that even look like if we come at it like that? And so give us some funding for some food, because we also like to feed our community. But yeah, so there's that. It's been very empowering to see the youth leadership that's been created in our efforts, because the best part of this is we do this intergenerationally. So every single person in the community, elders know, come to our events, you sit wherever you want, you ask our partners for whatever you want, and they've already been told, give them whatever they want or they're gonna take it. So that's already like there. And then if you see our events, you'll see all the youth are running around, passing out masks, passing out things, picking up trash. They all know that all of this is a part of a bigger project for their futures. It's an investment in them. So as we invest in our education, we're also investing in our young people. And then recently, we've been able to empower our parents. So we've been seeing a lot of issues in the school system.
And so from that happening, now we have our parents now sitting and asking us, calling us and saying, hey, this is just what happened, what do I do? They wrote a whole thing telling me what I did, but this is not what I did. So then we tell them, oh, no, you will call the police and you will make a report and let's do this. If they wanna do it formally, let's do this formally. So now they know they have a whole organization that will stand with them in these offices. So the power that's being built in the community to make sure that they are being treated right and asking questions, that is the kind of courage that this work has given to me, so I'm trying to give it right back to them. So I could go on forever, but that's like a whole nother thing, so I'm gonna get into like.
Good afternoon, everyone. This is a problem sitting next to the road. So my name is Malik Bindal. I am the CEO of Saham Initiative. We advocate for, provide services around hunger, housing, economic stability, and well-being here in the IE. This in particular is very close to us because we actually started this organization while we were college students right here at RCC, and our first events were right here at Fairmont Park. And meeting in downtown Riverside meaningful times. And why that's connected to what's inspiring about what we do is that whenever people talk to me about the IE, whenever you hear people talking about the IE, it's kind of like the throwaway, the toss away, the pass through. We're driving to Vegas, let's just go past the IE, right? That's what the IE is. However, for everyone from the IE, for everyone in the IE, we do work. And we never stop doing work. And that's the reality, whether the money is here or not, we get work done. Right. And that's what the idea is. And that for me, and Mark and I earlier, we were talking about it. Work happens regardless. And as Lalopi just said, when the investment is there, think of what we're able to do. But either way, the work gets done. Because we know when it comes down to it, people rely on us. And we gotta be there for them. So what's most inspiring about the work that we do here in the IE is that there are so many people, like everyone sitting on the panel with me here, like everyone who's sitting in on chairs right now, all of you are about getting work done. Whether the funding is here or not, hopefully more funding is coming. But still, we get work done, and that's what I find so inspiring and pushes me to ensure no matter what, even, no matter what additional roadblocks are thrown at us, and so many roadblocks are continuing to be thrown at us. We all know, and I think it was mentioned in the report that the IE is one of the fastest growing regions in the country. And that's amazing, and it's beautiful, but it brings a lot of challenges. And it especially brings a lot of challenges to the people who are from here. And now people coming from outside, from LA, OC, and all of that are starting to come this way because it's more affordable, and guess what's happening? Everything's rising. What about for all of us that are still here, right? So while it is a challenge, it's also an opportunity. And every challenge is an opportunity, and that's what I find inspiring.
Thank you. I'm over here, I'm a note taker, so if you're like me, I have to process, like, just amazing radical movements that are happening with the folks that I did this one for with. My name is Francine Cepeda Blacksher. I'm the daughter to Olivia and Fred Matanonia from Cepeda from the island of Guahan and from Atlanta, Mexico. So I represent my family and I honor them. I would say first and foremost, they're my most inspiring to me. I set out to do work. Our organization is called Eisengrad. And Eisengrad really was created in the living room, and my brother told me to stop talking about it, be about it. Literally got the whiteboard and brought it to my face and told all the kids, get in the other room, write your thoughts down, let's go. And so I have to say my inspiration lies in that of my family. I too, like Lofi, these spaces are very emotional. And I'm just gonna give time and space to my emotions because oftentimes the most lonely work is the most inspiring work. And I would say one of the other greatest inspirations is the young adults that I get to serve every day. Talking to them, texting them right now, letting them know I'll be there on Monday, don't worry about it, come on now. Telling me that their grades are improving, telling me that they came to school, telling me that they got accepted at UCR. They got a college. So my young folks is literally the seed of my inspiration. I really believe that our young folks are brilliant. They're shakers or movers. They created historically some of the greatest movements in our history. One of the other things that I've learned in my life that has been inspiring to me is my husband and I doing this presentation on decolonizing in education under the theory called Black Radical Imagination. And that inspires me because what Black Radical Imagination has taught me is that you gotta dream, you gotta stay dreaming. And when folks try to stifle our dreams or create barriers to our dreams or interrupt our dreams, it really can really take a community from under. And I think oftentimes people have taken our people from under. And so the inspiration in that for me is reminding myself to stay dreaming, stay visionary, whatever it takes to get our families into our spaces. I also not only represent Island Grad here, I also represent San Bernardino City Unified School District. And one of the most inspiring things is in a school district where I came to because I saw a need for our students in education to feel seen, to be heard, to be valued, to shift the dialogue, to really center it on student thinking. I was angry. I was really frustrated. So as an educator, I knew I needed to come into that space. But because I stayed in it, and one of the things that continues to inspire me is staying consistent. The more consistent I stay and just showing up. Steph Ina taught me, wake up, grind, and go to sleep. Like, that is inspiring in itself on the days that I'm tired, the days that bureaucracy, politics, the invisibility of not being seen, heard, constantly being asked to do a dance for whatever event, right? So that constant stereotype, those constant microaggressions, staying consistent is the most inspiring to me because oftentimes just waking up and hitting it and saying, okay, I gotta respond to this email. Okay, how am I gonna come about this? But every time it was the students that centered me, that grounded me, that like, nah, see, this is how we're gonna do it. This is, you know what? This is what we're gonna do. My brothers who came in here from my department, Equity Targeted Student Achievement, helped me create the first ever Pacific Islander Equity Specialist role in San Bernardino City Unified School District, y'all. And that is on the back of many people who came before me. But shout out to my brother Lawrence who came through for ESSA, my girl Audrey May who came for Island Grad. I couldn't do without these folks who move with me. So that's another thing that's inspiring is working in community. And I think we've all been saying that. Lolofi and I have worked together on our coalition. If it wasn't for them, I wouldn't have any idea how to begin a nonprofit. Hearing my girls say, hey, don't mess with them, stay focused on what you're doing. Like, it was like, okay, I got this. Like, you know, I remember that when I first started Island Grad, it was never a me thing, it was a us thing. And when I started it, people were like, how did that evolve? And where did that come from? And I said, you know, it came from saying like, damn, I'm so tired of being called for expulsion conversations. Or, you know, hey, this student, I want to recruit him for football. Granted, my people are amazing on the field. They are amazing in art, in music, in dance, in athletics, in academia. But dang, now you're gonna see us for our achievements. And so we created a space, a ceremonial space that was sacred. And thankfully, we were creating it on San Bernardino Valley College's campus, and they did it. They paid for everything. We got folks to organize behind us. And that's just, to me, they continuously show up. So the folks that continue to stay in community partners, that when you create this idea and you tell them like, look, our people are not seen, our people constantly don't get pulled to the table, like, hey, when you're in that space, can you bring this up? And when they do that, like that is a ripple effect that has shown me time and time again. If they bring my name up or our group or our organization or our students in those spaces, that's inspiring to me because that's telling me, you heard me, you saw me, all right, let's get this work done. Kind of like my brother said right here, you gotta stay in the work. And I think that sometimes the inspiring isn't sometimes always like this most glorifying thing. Sometimes inspiring is just getting down to the nitty gritty and just doing it, right? If my family says they need this, I need to find it. My student, you know, auntie, I'm about to get evicted. All right, so what can we do? So I tap into my nonprofit community, I tap into our Atlas, or any program that we have. And really, it's really creating this understanding that even in myself, like we're not all answers. We can't do it all, but I do have empathy to everybody's experiences. So when I say I do this work, I say I do this work on behalf of Pacific Islanders for all people. So if people understand what that means, they get behind it. If they don't understand what that means, I'm like, look, get out the way. Like, okay, cool, you just told me who you are. I'm good, let's keep on pushing. The other thing too, I wanna bring up that inspires me, that I have to say more and more right now, is leaning into our ancestral practices. So many times we're like, what do we do? Now, our people have been doing wellness work. Our people have been community circling for years, for decades, for centuries. Our people have so many practices through chants, through music, through natural ingredients, through all these things. Like, I'm starting to realize, like, when I learned this one chant that my auntie taught me, the Bikuma Mao, our grads are now saying that. It's about, we carry this tree together. We're gonna carry it down the hill. We're gonna do whatever it takes. If someone needs us to step in and carry it a little bit more than them, we do that. So I think really inspiring lately has been leaning into understanding the roots of all of our ancestral practices, not just Pacifica people, but all. And so I really lean into that. I would have to say too, a big thing that I've learned in doing this work is something that's not easy. It's called radical love, radical imagination, radical love. They're actual theories, so look these up. Radical love is even when I don't like you, I still love you. And that's hard. When you see people who are bigots and racist and bureaucratic or greed or capitalistic, and you have to work with them, and you have to be like, but I still need these funds, right? And I still need you to put us on that agenda. I still need you to bring our people in this space. I still need you to bring my kids to your board meeting. You know, like, I understand that I still gotta love them through that because that's mine and my whole generation of young folks, our generation of young folks, to really be radical in the love. And that means, A, what the gaps are, is you telling me where we need to fill. So thank you for telling me that you couldn't do that. So now I'm gonna tell you what you need to do. So that's been super inspiring to me. And again, just being here today and seeing all of you here and present and how you all made this happen is also just inspiring to be in space with all these folks that are just beautifully and courageous. Thank you.
Thank you. And I have to say, this is not the catalyst, this is not the beginning, the roots of how I got here, how we all got here. We always talk about the youth. I learned my strength through my parents, through the people above me. So I would like to say, as a youth is strong, we are only as strong as we are together. So thank you all for this inspirational work. I was able to interview a majority of these, and some of these interviews, as they are beautiful, and it's sometimes challenging to hear as well. So I'd like to, again, another round of applause for everyone here. We'll dive into our next question, and we'll start with Francine. What has been one of the more challenging aspects of your work that your organization does?
One of the most challenging things, and we're here right in this work, is the data, right? I met Karthik and our other brother at DC this past year. And as soon as I heard it, I was like, shoot, okay, I need you guys to do da-da-da-da-da. He's like, we can write that out? I was like, done. I mean, and then we found each other again. The challenging piece, and I'm just gonna say this as a TK through 12 educator, I'm getting tired of hearing that we don't have enough numbers, that you can't represent us on school district information. So our state testing, if you're under 100 people taking the test, they will not put our data out. So you're telling me the 88, the 78, the 28 don't matter? Their data doesn't matter? Like, I see those kids every day. I look at them in their face every day, and you're telling me they don't matter? I'm already telling you right now, that is the most challenging thing. And I'm so tired of this story. I want to walk around with the brochure and just be like, read this. Let me know when you're ready to have a conversation, because until you can implement this, I can't talk to you. Or I can't move with you, because we have to get behind what we say we're gonna do. And data is one of the #1 things, because folks don't listen unless it's factual. I mean, I wanna say this, like, one of the most challenging things too is our people we talk story. Our people have so much richness in how we pass down our generational knowledge. And I've gotten it from my uncles, to my aunties, to my grandparents, to folks that aren't even my relatives, but I take the time to listen to their story. One of the most hardest things is when I don't hear people in spaces take time to listen to the stories behind migration patterns, the stories behind how you evolved as
a now professor, the stories behind how do you get to school every day? You know, I have a student right now, late almost every day, but now his family's moving out because they can't afford living there anymore. Have you thought about learning his story as a way to connect with him in English? Because this is why he's not showing up to period 1 every day. You know, like he's actually helping his family. He's actually doing right by his family. But you know what? School cannot be his priority until that is in order. So like the challenges of seeing in our communities that our stories need to take precedent. And thank you, Lisa, for and the work of AAPI data around creating narratives around data. And I think that's another thing is when we look at the challenges of, and I can only speak to my role of education, we're trying to find our graduates, right? We're trying to find them in real estate. We're trying to find them in doctoral programs, master's programs. And you want to know the hardest things about getting to them? Is finding the people that will get the information to the students. And all we're trying to do is say, hey, can you get us to your Pacific Islander, your Filipino, any students who want to join? And they're like, oh, well, we can't do that. Well, we can put it in the senior newsletter. Oh, we can put that in a, you know, the parent square, the family. It's like, no, gather your students, pull them in and talk to them, get to know the families. I don't know why this is the greatest challenge. People are afraid to meet in communities with our families. Like, I don't understand. We just hosted a Pacifica Culture Night. Shout out to Cal State San Bernardino, Kurt and your team for partnering, making that happen. We brought 526 folks to San Bernardino. And I'm telling you, some of these people were like, this is the first time I've ever been on this campus. And it's our backyard. And we're talking about why this is so hard for our institutions to see that they're not bringing our families to the table. Another challenge is listen to our families, make spaces for them. It don't have to be a policy that was created. It don't have to be a amendment or a required parent group. You create it and allow those people to give them spaces. One of my things that my students tell me when I ask them, we presented recently at a conference, and I asked them, what are the continuous challenges you all are having? And they're saying spaces. In these institutions, having a space to meet, like literally having a space to meet for free. And oh, by the way, and loud, because our students wanna like exert their energy and our people are loud and they love being loud. And I love it. And they got kicked out of space because they were too loud. You know, so I'm bringing up all these institutional things and real big picture for nonprofit work. I can echo probably the same thing. Number one thing, yes, funding, building capacity, giving us people that help us with nonprofit taxes, nonprofit board making, what is that called? All the documents we have to have. If we can have access to that knowledge, people are withholding that knowledge. Why? Why? When we come here, we say, oh, I'm struggling. Hey, I got you. Like that's huge to me. And that's really being in community with each other. So those are a couple of the aspects I would say that I deal with challenges. Thank you.
Thank you.
This is fun, right? Before it's all rosy, yeah, everything's inspiring, right? But each and everything that we talked about that is inspiring also brings its own challenges to it. So one of the biggest challenges, and I know everyone here, probably everyone sitting down right now, can echo in that, yes, IE gets work done. We're always working. The biggest challenge is we are that flyover. People look and they're like, well, stuff is happening already. Why do we need to invest more? It's like, yeah, stuff is happening because we're working, you know, after school, after work, all of this stuff, trying to do this part-time, all of that stuff, right? I'll give you an example for Hub Initiative. Like I mentioned, we started when we were in college. For the first 11 years of our organization, it was all part-time while we were finishing college, while we were in grad school, while we were working full-time, all of that. Why? Because the work has to happen. So one of the biggest challenges is actually being taken seriously, not only as organizations, but as a region. People look at the IE and they're like, ah, whatever. We don't have to think about them. Look at LA, Orange County, right? That's what it is. People don't look at the IE. People don't look and see the need that there is here in the IE. Again, people focus on LA, not trying to put down LA or anything of that nature, but we got just as much need here. And it's about time that people start recognizing the need that is here. Because again, the majority of the people that are being pushed out, that are being gentrified from LA, from Orange County, from San Diego, guess where they're coming? This is where they're coming. And we were already to our ears with work. And now we got more people coming in. Well, we're gonna push them to the side? No. We're gonna figure out how we can help too, because that's what we do. But that's one of the biggest challenges that we have. And I'm gonna take a quote that Lolofi actually mentioned, and she mentioned it in the report, right? We need meaningful investment, not leftovers, right? Oftentimes what happens is, after we finish everything over here, what's left? Oh, there's this little bit, let's see if we can do something in the IB, right? That's not what we need. We need real investment, because that is what, and the IB has proven to be able to do more with less. So imagine if we had more. Right? That's one of the biggest challenges that we have. And then one specific to kind of all of our communities. I think a shared thing within all of our communities is when you come from another country, when you come from another system and everything, it is extremely challenging to convince anyone that the system you came from is different than the one that you are in right now. And I'll give the example that I think I mentioned in the report, civic engagement. If I come from a country where every single elected official wins with 99.8% of the votes, do you think when I come to this country, I'm going to trust the electoral system? Then when I come to this country and I don't understand what the electoral college is, but then people tell me, oh, well, don't vote for the president anyways, because it always goes Democrat. Do you think I'm going to trust the electoral system here? Right? So one of the biggest challenges is dealing with, truthfully, the trauma, the political trauma, the civic engagement trauma that many of our communities face from back home, applying it here. Just being able to talk to them, to let them know and understand, guess what? It is different. But the only way it can be different is if you engage. And if you don't engage, it's the exact same. So that's one of the biggest challenges that we have across all communities, right? Is that our communities can be apathetic. Because when they come to different convenings, different meetings, they don't see a group standing up talking like this. They don't see people who look like them talking. They don't hear people like them who talk like them feel heard. They are able to be loud in the space where they are. So if I'm not getting that, why would I go to it to begin with? We're actually fighting an uphill battle because we got to convince our people, guess what? There is meaning in it. Guess what? There is power in it. You have power. But we got to convince them that they have the power. That's the biggest challenge that we have, convincing our community that they have power.
If you are not a pastor, I would totally come to your church. Listen to you preach. So I feel so loud right now, so thank you. Yes, obviously, this work is so fulfilling in so many ways, but there are so many challenges. And so I will say one of the biggest challenges for my community is the stereotype. Basically, they believe what society has created, has said about them, and it is hard work to try to change those mindsets. So basically, you know, you're only a leader if you're on the football field. You know, that's so hard to work through. I've had to battle also, don't let them play football, or don't let them take the AP classes because it's gonna mess up the football. So then now they're messing with their education in the classrooms because now they've shifted their thinking and their confidence in that way. So it's just a lot of extra work that we have to do already on top of the new administration, extra work that we have to do now as well. So challenges keep punching us left and right. But also the other challenge is having to constantly prove our existence is killing us too. Because it's like, I say that like I am very emotional. So when I speak about some of the stories, I get emotional because this is really happening and people don't believe what I'm saying is really what just happened. Like if I shared something that just happened like 2 weeks ago, you'd be like, no, that's not real. It's freaking real. And so for me now, in the place that I'm at, I don't play around with it. Like I said, we're gonna make a police report and we're gonna come at it the way they don't expect us to. And so it's just working against the stereotypes that we've created. It's like, so he's also in the workplace. In the workplace, they just think they're the worker bees, that they don't need to go for these
management roles. I've met people who say, oh, auntie, I just want to graduate to fill up, what is it, stock up the produce at the grocery store. You know, and I'm like, wait, what? You know, and so we have to bring them in, do that handshake, look at them in their eyes and tell them like, no, you're gonna do this very strong handshake with me, you know, look me in my eyes, and I'm gonna tell you, you're amazing, you come from ancestors who literally navigated the stars before come this. So I was like, you know, just reminding them, we are scientists, we are all these things, you know, just trying to bring them back into that. So it's the mindset change, it's just all of these ways that we have this extra work that we have to do for our people. And then again, how I said, having to prove our existence is very, very tiring. But again, we're up for the fight, so we continue to do that. And then also when people tell us like, hey, you guys are doing health, you guys are doing education, you guys are doing youth leadership, you're doing this, it's too much. Who's gonna do it if we don't do it? Because the other part is they're not coming to the other, like the cities, the counties have asked us, Loki, how does Malo do this? And I have to tell them, at first I think, okay, let me tell them how to do this so we can serve our people. Then I have to think, wait a minute, they're trying to get all the answers for me so they can take the money. You know, so I'm trying to be smart in these spaces too. And again, the IE taught me that, so thank you. Ask these questions, you know? And so that's the place where we come from too. And it's tiring, but it's also like when you see how empowered the kids are. Because I've also had parents say, look, it's AAPI month. I went to this room and all the flags are up there, but none of this is out of their ones are. And so I'm like, oh my gosh, so, you know, this is an adult crying to me too, about seeing the same thing. And then I tell her, okay, I want you to think about Bubba, I want you to think about Celeste, and I want you to think about them being in this room, in that same room that you're in, and if they don't see their flag, what do you think is gonna happen? Oh, they're gonna raise their hand and they're gonna say, where's my flag? And that's what we're creating within our youth. Yeah, so there's so many challenges, and I'm sure you've heard some here, but yeah, I'll just go ahead and pass it because it could be for days.
Well, so one of our biggest challenges is too many women and less men. Oh, I'm just kidding, no. But it almost like all the CBOs are women-owned business, right? I mean, I saw you, that's why I said ICAA needs women. But anyway, so our actually biggest problem is the limited sustainable resources targeted at specific AAPI needs or priorities. For example, you know, there are tons of funding, I know, and a lot of topics that are equally important. However, you know, when it comes to AAPI priorities, I mean, I was talking to a lot of colleagues or, you know, friends here that we always, you know, so like this report, we found out that a lot of AAPIs are multi-generational households. And then, you know, I don't know if you know the MESA, you know, in Riverside is gonna shift the focus on housing or homelessness. I'm sorry, but like I myself, we have a multi-generational, we are in a multi-generational household too, 3 generations. Maybe it masks the need or affordability for house ownership or home ownership, but we all knew from the report now, right? Like the affordability is not judged by whether you can afford a house or not, right? If you gotta look at the income, and that is the importance of data, right? And that's why ICA is striving, like is working really hard for those. So bottom line is, I think trust is priceless. If you are dealing with CBOs like us, you're investing in relationship. And that doesn't come in one day, and that cannot be bought by any funding, right? So let's say we have CDC funding, which deals with COVID prevention, okay? And then we have Stop the Hate, thanks to our regional lead, Alcamica and CDSS, which will focus on human rights, civil rights. But all CBOs know that we got phone calls constantly and cries for help on domestic violence. Like we handled those things 2018 and harassment, right? And then, immigrations, we need legal aid. But when we filed for, a proposal in legal aid, they said, oh, you have no experience. You're not a legal, like you have no legislative background or a subcontract. But if you don't fund us, how would you know that we will not build that capacity? That's one of the things, I think all the fundings, they're pretty isolated. So that's why I say here, I'm so glad to know that finally a probably regional API community fund is being built. I think with that, I probably can see a little hope in the sustainability part of supporting our work. Thank you.
I feel like this panel, it's true, this work is really emotional. Advocacy work is really an emotional labor that goes unseen for a lot of the people that sit, in these positions. You're asking us to have community members tell the most vulnerable stories. All of these numbers, yes, they give validation to all those stories that have to be heard. But can you imagine the tears, the heart racing when you have to tell those stories? I'm very thankful that we have a lot of mental health advocates in this room, a lot of social workers in this room. Big ups to all the API community members, doing this work. Also with civic engagement, as an organization this last year, we were recognized with the Riverside County Board of Supervisors for API Heritage Month and Mental Health Awareness Month. But one of the challenges is we can have those titles, we can have these awards, we can have city councils recognize us. But where does that get us outside those doors? In our organization, I mentioned it earlier, but we are an intergenerational organization as much as a lot of our organizations are here on this panel. And it's really like, I mentioned it earlier, but the 18 to 35-year-old window of the population here, there's this, it's like a tale almost, but it's a lot of those 18 to 35-year-olds get pushed out of this community because once they get those higher degrees or they get higher education, they want to go to spaces like Orange County or LA where they think they have more opportunities. And a lot of the times, a lot of the opportunities that are available here, they demand so much higher degrees from you. I think there was something in the report about how a lot of the open positions that are available, they're required to have a master's degree. Thankfully, I've been, able to find this organization from word of mouth with another fellow organizer that I used to work with in LA, who was the program manager of mental health program manager at the Search to Involve Filipino Americans. But it's those relationships where if I didn't have those relationships, it would be so much harder for me to find organizations that are doing the work here on the ground and providing me, the safe space that I need as a new API person who is unaware of all of the things that are happening post-COVID in this area. You don't know how safe it made me feel to realize that there's a community, specifically a Filipino American community, that advocates for mental health post-COVID. I had to watch so much anti-hate work, so much hate work on my screen, all of these things that, and I'm sure a lot of our community members also witnessed these on our cell phone screens too. But it was really grounding to be able to just, see the work. I know Mila Banks is here from. She is one of our longstanding members who has been a mental health advocate in our program, and also Dr. Navarro, who's also been a mental health advocate in these programs. But it's a big jump to, have to consistently show up and as a younger adult in these spaces where I'm constantly in a lot of meetings with, people who are more in their retired ages, and I don't complain. I really don't complain because it's important for us to have a space where we can, you know, collaborate with one another and like think about, you know, bring our perspective onto the table because it's really rare. These organizations, they're really rare. In Orange County, I didn't have an organization like this. And I know that ever since that I've been with 3 different programs with this nonprofit organization. I used to be with their mental health program. I used to work in outreach with them. I used to also help with their monthly programs. I used to also do COVID outreach. Thank you to Malo, who has helped us do these vaccine clinics. You know, and now I'm fortunate enough to be where I am with the supplement program and helping them organize a lot of the programming. But it's still a lot of work. The expectations are really high sometimes, and the politics, they don't align with the things that are happening on the ground, and how urgent the needs are really in the community. For context and why I think it's really important to also share like why it's urgent is that every year that I have also been here, I have seen kids from our community go missing. And it's really hard. It's really hard when they don't come back home. That happened my first year, you know, thankfully for Jackson, the following time we were able to speak with him, he was able to say that he wrote a bill that would help community health workers, specifically in the Black community, but also cultural responsive communities to provide these resources to them. But how long is that bill gonna take to come down into our communities and to take effect? A few months later, I lost my brother in the same way. And so, you know, I am just one person that got to experience that, but I don't want to take that away from our community to help them understand that this is important for so many of us. It's not just me, it's our community.
We have one last question, and we'll start with Francine. And I will ask, it feels wrong to ask, but in a sentence or two, what should funders know about making impact, to make more impact investments in the region? And where do AAPI communities fit into that picture?
I think we kind of answered that within a lot of what we're saying. First, see us, know that we're here, know that in the Inland Empire, which is even a phrase that was created to define, it's not even really fully legally defined, but we created it as a way of saying we are here. So when people rep IE, we rep it. And I went to San Diego and came back to home. That's how much I repped it. I mean, I had a job. I was all, and I was like, nope, going back home. So I would say is funders. I think someone told me this once before when I was like about to meet a funder. They're like, they gotta like you, they gotta, you know. I think it's just remembering to tap in, someone said, to the relationship with us. Really take the time to get to know who we are and the work we're doing. And I would also say, get to know your community organizations that are really doing the work in your community. And be mindful when you put out this blast of potential funding and grants, if they don't have any traction or feet or marks in the community and they can't gather people, are they truly someone that is of this community? Because recently I experienced something where, you know, I worked with my fellow boards and we were a PI strong IE representation. And we went after a grant and it went to an org that we found out was from LA that had one person representing IE. It wasn't even the money. It was the fact that the folks didn't do their job researching the community to know that they didn't even have any work really planted here. And that's the hard part, is know who's planted here and talk to them, get to know them, you know, like there's no other way but to build a relationship. So I think that's key. I would also say funders, come out and embrace the things that we're doing. So if you are funding something, come and meet our island grads. Come to the actual ceremony, meet our students who are going to college, be open to us connecting folks with you. Because if you're funding us, you've been in a space where you have knowledge, you have access, you have insight, you have all kinds of resources and people. Why not we have this reciprocity? I think that's something we're missing a lot, is reciprocity. Just because you give us money, don't mean we owe you anything. We are doing the work that you are saying you trust us to do because you see the value. So trust us, but also be that reciprocal love and remind us what you and us can exchange. That also makes us feel valued, doesn't make us feel top down, right? I think also, hierarchy is real. So when we do investing in money, don't let that power struggle, be very mindful of that and what that looks like. I remember going into a meeting and them saying like, I said, okay, what is it? What are the protocols that you guys don't allow? They're like, no, Fran, this is like open to whatever you want. I'm like, no, just tell me what are your protocols? What can we not spend this money on? Da, da, da. And they're like, wait, really? Like, no, Fran, this is all funding for whatever you want. I had to get out of my mind of like, okay, here's the barriers, tell me the barriers. Okay, we can work with that. Okay, we can work with that. So really being open to how we see this tool of money being a push for the work, being an under like current to take it and see the longevity of it. I also think impactful investments, folks who are funders, get behind creating policies and bills and help us get out there too and getting these things written in school districts, in local government, and bring us to the space. If you see someone that doesn't represent AAPI, AA and HPI, call on us. If I can't make it, I'm gonna call like 20 other people who can make it. So don't say we couldn't get anyone representing that space. I'm getting tired of hearing that. I'm getting tired that you can't find NHPI Pacifica folks. We're here. We're here. So if you're not doing your work, please, we would love to help connect with your folks. I don't care who it is, field representative, an intern, whoever it is, bring us to those spaces. And I say, where do AA communities fit into the picture? I think everything I covered fits into the picture. I would say being mindful that when we work with our AAPI, that we hold such vast knowledge. When you work with our folks are cultural practitioners. They are historians. They are elders. They're chiefs. They're extraordinary. They may not have that doctorate degree. They may not have all that, one thing we get asked, oh, how many funds have you had? Or what has your, I don't even know the right question. And I was like, I mean, we could have more, but we're trying to get it right now. So how can you guys be able to deal with this kind of money coming in? Yes, we can. Yes, we can. But when we have the opportunity, she said earlier, if we don't get the opportunity, how are we going to create it? So I need you to see us as capable and able. So yes, thank you. Sorry.
Yeah, only like 10 minutes. So I think to make impactful investments, I think it's really key to see who is actually having an impact on the ground and make meaningful, long-term investments in them. It's easy for us to say, I'm gonna help you this one time, and here you go, and everyone looks good and everything. But if it's not over time, if it's not sustained, how can you truly expect there to be a meaningful impact? I think there has to be more lasting, knowing who's on the ground, who is doing the work, and investing in them long-term in their infrastructure. I know funders don't like hearing it, but honestly, general operating capacity, right? It is the backbone of every organization. Without capacity, you are not able to do anything. So organizations need that general operating support that will sustain the work they are already doing. And if they're doing it without that, imagine how impactful it will be with it.
Unrestricted, long term. And I'm with you, Malik, on investing, for us, like Okay, invest in IECC so they can take care of our back lands. How about that? Yeah, because they, we're running and we're doing all these things, and the thing is, you don't have a chance to like sit down and do all that. So if we're already doing all this work and we have organizations such as that, like IECC, that's willing to like, help us build it together, or they do it, I feel like they have such okay, basically that. But then how do the AAPI communities fit into this picture? So Malo basically is, they always say it, you're building a plan as you go. I know you're not supposed to do that, but no one's done what we've done. And then now we've got public health and all these bigger people coming and asking us how you're doing it. Just invest in us so that way we can continue to do it, because what we're doing is we're listening to the people and we're only bringing what the people want. And just trust us enough where you see what we're doing. Follow our work, come to our events. I'll always say it, at our organization, whenever somebody comes through, there's a different feeling that comes when you come to if you're just sitting there watching or handing out food or chopping it up with our kids, like, it's different. The feeling is always different. So just continue to trust us to do what you are seeing and hearing, because I feel like Thunders have heard about our work. And just continue to trust us to do that, and, just help us to build our capacity as well. Thank you.
Okay, so, funding so it's hard to switch the shoes. Because we're spending the funding, if I, were a funder, what would I think? So I want to start by sharing, some of, the frequent feedbacks from our communities. I wish I have heard this before. That's one of the typical feedback. Or can you please host more events like this? Or where can I ask for help if I live somewhere else? So, fundings normally have restrictions. We all know that. They have time constraints, 2 years, 3 years. And they have geographic limits too. But our community work is not limited, right? Like ICAA, our goal is to build a hybrid online and offline ecosystem or infrastructure where we can deliver the resources. So I'd like to view that as a logistic company or hub, right? We don't enjoy cheap commodities just because the price is cheap. It's because of the logistic companies, the efficiency. They can cut down a lot of the middle cost, so we can enjoy the final product factory to door. So I would like to see, for funders, you're actually investing in community organizations which can deliver the resources. We're not only the navigators, we are also the matchmakers, right? We are matching the legit legitimate resources, I would say, or good quality resources to our community who needs them. So, so from the funders' point, I'm thinking, if you're worried about the funding, how community organizations use the funding, I think what happened today would be a good model, right? We facilitate the talks or a committee made of policymakers and researchers, data experts, and representatives from communities. We all work together, we collaborate with each other to make sure the funding is used in the right way. So I think we would love to align our goals to our funders' goals. The biggest thing is I want to make sure both of our goals can last and work. We did all the work of planting the seed, water it, fertilize it. Now it's a little tree. We want to make sure ICA can grow into a big tree and offer shade, bigger shade to our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. What should others know about where we are? There are really strong foundations in this community, and that hasn't been made very apparent today. There are incredibly strong relationships within each organization that has been doing this work. Shirley just mentioned they work collaboratively with one another. Right? I want to give a big shout out to, I know PBFA is only one of the Filipino orgs in this room, but I want to recognize NEPCON, the National Ecumenical Forum for Filipino Americans, that is also in this room. I want to recognize FANS OCIE, so they're the Filipino American National Historical Society that represents Orange County and Inland Empire that are in this room. There are also Filipino American community health promoters that, you know, have really also helped us a lot with our mental health program, with the Asia Pacific Counseling and Treatment Centers. There are so many relationships that I have been able to build within the last couple of years that I think I've been know for a really long time in my life. And I think that just goes to show how important the relationships that we have with one another are, and our willingness to give each other a seat on the table, or to direct, like what Shirley was saying, to direct people to where we need to go. And back to what Francine was saying too, like, we are not here to be selfish, and that's really unique about these opportunities that we get. You have the opportunity to really bring jobs, like sustainable jobs for our community. How amazing would it be if, you know, we've been getting invited so much to high schools. These Asian Student Union high schoolers, they're starting to build night markets of their own. Imagine having Asian night markets here in the community that are more than just the Riverside Lunar Festival ones, but, you know, that just goes to show like what you all have the ability to help us create.
Thank you. Thanks for everyone. Round of applause for everyone again here. And I hope that this is just one of many talks for them to take this space. So thank you all, and we'll move to our second panel. So thank you all again.
Okay, so the next panel is gonna be like a combination of funders and community leaders. So I'll ask those on our next panel to come up expeditiously, so we can, you know, we can save time for Q&A and also community leaders. So I'm just gonna call folks as they're coming up. Dr. Navarro, I see Dr. Navarro, you can't escape from Dr. Navarro. Long-time community leader. Next, and then we have Mark Tran, my colleague from the company in Dallas. And we have Ben Nalte from IDCF. Then I see Susie Gomez coming down. We have enough seats? Okay, we have enough seats. And Sky Allen from ID United. So while we get started, I just want to give I looked up one thing that Francine had said, which is the importance of policy change. So I'll give a plug for a particular piece of legislation that API Data, among others, is supporting the state legislature right now. And it's authored by a former commissioner on the California Commission on API Affairs, Darshana Patel. It's AB 1186. It is on data infrastructure and data disaggregation. Now that focuses on state agencies, including the Department of Education and others. But hopefully, they reach out to us in terms of local data policies and school districts, Francine, that could make a difference so that you're not getting gaslighted, right? In terms of, you know, these people exist, but they say the data do not exist on the people that you know. Right? So let's talk about that afterwards in terms of, in addition to funding and resourcing, what are the kinds of policy changes and other systemic changes that we can partner with you on. Okay, so I'm just gonna go, we're gonna have to pick up the pace a little bit, but y'all are experts in what we do. Okay, so I see the mic down at the end of Dr. Navarro, so we're gonna start with Dr. Navarro. So Dr. Navarro, first question, when you think about an inspiring moment, right, such as a major project or collective action that happened in this region that was led by API serving organization, what comes to you?
Actually, what comes to mind, and I know it sounds like self-promoting, is.
Self-promotion is okay.
So, Asian American Task Force, which is a subcommittee under the Riverside University Health System, was started by, one of our colleagues, and so, and she put together all of these different organizations you saw here for the most part, and she was instrumental in bringing, Asia Pacific Counseling and Treatment Center. And so she actually was the one who recruited me to be in, and then I was so impressed with the work that they were doing that I quit my full-time job that had benefits to take on this role. Which is a cultural community liaison, because I do believe in the work that a lot of the different organizations, and that's been one of the inspiring things about the work that the Asian American Task Force. Now we changed our name, we rebranded it to AAPI Alliance, so we wanted to be more inclusive, so it's Asian Pacific Islander, the American Native Hawaiian Alliance. And so although our focus is mental health, it's, mental health is in everything, right? So health, public health, education, and businesses. And so it's really all of that, like bringing a community together, as what everybody has said. Being able to see the work that everyone's doing, but just trying to figure out a way, the little money that we can get from RUHS Behavioral Health, that we can, like, little sponsor for their different events that we can support, whether it's 500, 300, or even bringing swags to their event. That's how we want to support that effort.
Excellent. And thank you, Dr. Barra, for your advocacy within county agencies, right? To make sure that resources. Let's go to Ben. And what concrete example, something that's happened that inspires you?
I think this new AAPI fund, AA and HPI fund coming out of ICF late last year, under the direction of Michelle and Paulette, who's on the board at the time at ICF. A shameless plug, there's no fund like this in the area. The only other fund like this, I think, is in San Diego, and they self-funded their fund. I think with this, with the data that's coming out, and the advisory group that we put together, you heard earlier today, and Mayor Chan is pretty much the face of it right now. Just coming out, and this project or this collective action that we're doing, it's going to set the tone for the community, for our area. No one else is doing it. I think it's bringing together the triangle that Carthage had, with elected officials, with funders, with nonprofit organizations. That's what it's going to take. We have to flex our muscles here. All the folks running for governor are in the Inland Empire every single, every single. All the Tonys are here from the state. It's hard to reach, and we are a force to be dealt with. We have the capacity, we have the numbers, we have the financial backing, we have the voters, we have the organization in that last panel that's coming from the heart. You get goosebumps. I go to Malcolm's church too, as well. Yeah, church. So yeah, that's something that I think it's coming. It's brand new, but it's going to grow.
Great, thank you, Dr. Barra.
Afternoon, everyone. I think COVID-19 initiated our investments into IE. Prior to the pandemic, we were a place-based initiative. So we gave over 35 million to the Eastern Coachella Valley over 10 years. I made the drive from San Diego, but turned right on the 60, the 10, and I just never went to Riverside and San Bernardino. But the initial work funding the Inland Empire Pacific Island COVID response team, which Malo, Island Grant, and a bunch of other nonprofit organizations were part of, funding Sahaba Initiative, NetCon as well. And I think for me, what's exciting is to see the growth of that relationship. So we are giving multi-year general operating support to our partners here. I'm excited to carry on that legacy, that work to develop new relationships with the partners here in the Inland Empire to really sustain and support this growing infrastructure in this dynamic region.
Thank you, Mark. I was supposed to say that Margarita Luna sends her regrets she couldn't be here. That She's a long time Canadian. The only correction is total correctness is the census, where the, down.
We can get to that.
Yeah, but we'll get there. Thanks, guys.
Guy's the expert on the
Yeah,
census.
so Susie.
Yeah, good afternoon, buenas tardes. My name is Susan Gomez. I, work for, and I'm the CEO to an organization called Inland Empire Community Collaborative. So I think the question, I'm gonna try to be brief about it, but I will be transparent. Both Lolofi and Sahaba have come through a year-long capacity building academy with IECC. So they are part of our family. So super proud about the work, but also recognize, I think one of the most inspiring moments for me with AAPI organizations was during COVID. I think that we saw at the forefront that they were the ones that were struggling and suffering the most. And I remember, Lolofi, we were driving to Los Angeles, like the ICC, there's 109 organizations, and we at that time were not knowing where we could get masks or gloves or anything, right? And someone told us that downtown LA is near Skid Row, we could get masks and gloves, right? So my brother and I drove, up to downtown LA. And then we sat in a parking lot and started handing them out to nonprofits. And I remember the one who needed them the most was Lolofi. And we had multi-sector organizations, faith-based organizations, foster agencies, first five, grantees, all helping one another, but all wanting to help Lolofi because she was the one that really had families that were dying. And we felt at the moment that this required us to be a collective family in a community where we felt like those that were the most vulnerable weren't visible. They were talking about, we were sitting in meetings for the counties and at the state level, and they weren't talking about it. So I think that for me was the inspiration of seeing the strength and the fortitude in those communities that were AAPI.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for allowing me to be here. This has been really incredible. Thinking about inspiring moments, I definitely second the comments about how the crisis of the COVID-19 pandemic created an opportunity. But if we go back to your point, 2 more years, we were able to leverage an opportunity that maybe wasn't a crisis, just quite, though there were still threats. But from a place of leveraging the power that we had, we were able to come together in a multiracial way that was really intentional about trying to include as much NHPI communities as possible and AAPI communities into the process through the Census Project, where we had a 2-year-long, really deep collaboration across the 2 county region, across different organizations. We built a collaboration of 55 different organizations across the 2 county regions where we met regularly, at least once a month, oftentimes more than once a month, over 2019, and continue to collaborate and support each other through 2020. That was an opportunity to build deeper relationships, to offer funding for folks who maybe hadn't gotten it before, to build sort of networks that we could build off of that helped us know who each other was, so that when the pandemic happened in 2020, first we were able to support each other through it in real time when it struck in March of 2020, because we had to figure out how to push through and navigate to take care of each other and get a complete count in the census, push through that to the 2020 general election, and then 2021 really focus, all hands on deck on supporting folks, getting folks vaccinated, helping protect people, and then building out to redistricting. So I think that was a really inspiring opportunity to network, to get resources, to build capacity, and then I think also to build a foundation for what we need to continue to lean into. Because there's clearly more, there's always going to be more need, there's clearly more need. I got a comment from an organization cited earlier, the Work Worker Resource Center. Shahir had mentioned earlier this week at a different event that, overcoming being an area that is under an area or organization or community that is under resourced, you have to over resource in order to catch up. And I think that we're in that place now where that we're in a moment where there is opportunity, but it's also opportunity through crises as we figure out how to take care of each other and support each other in this dark moment. How do we lean into the opportunities that we leverage, the networks that we've built, and continue to overinvest in all of the ways possible so that we can build a community that we all deserve to live in, we all see ourselves.
Thanks. Yeah, and the thing, thank you. And what I'll add, I mean, it's we as a collective, and so I want to recognize your leadership during that entire period, and I united. And, you know, our region beat the odds. In fact, we did better than other regions when it came to. Yeah, right. So this is not just, hey, let's do this to build capacity and play catch up. Like, this is the winning hand, right? And it's just on sheer performance, right? And even on redistricting, and you're seeing the results of some of that in terms of the diversification of our. Okay, so we'll start with you, Sky, on the next round, which is thinking specifically about API serving organizations, including those we heard from, others profiled in the report. How do we make sure that their expertise as well as their priorities can gain more visibility? You know, we had our ideas that we put in the report. Curious to hear your thoughts.
I second them and I uplift them. I think we, first we have to acknowledge that in order to gain visibility, we have to make sure that there's opportunities to be seen and to be heard. So this event is an incredible step in that direction, modeling what that looks like for partners, for funders, for all of us in the community, and for each other. I think that's really important. So definitely like taking seriously, not just saying that we serve people of color, but making sure like we disaggregate that and say, what is this? What does that mean for Black folks? What does that mean for Latinos? What does that mean for Pacific Islanders? What does that mean for Asian American folks? What does that mean for the media community? Like going through and making sure that we're not invisibilizing people as we try to put all of us into this big tent that inherently sometimes cloud some of us. So I think being really intentional about who we're bringing in, who we're making space to listen to, and then building in the infrastructure that we need to follow through on those things, right? So these are incredible recommendations. What are the tangible things that we need to do in the next like 4 weeks to start moving on this, or if the next quarter to start moving on this, so that it's not like, that was a wonderful event. Anyways, we actually have to lean into it and make sure that we're doing the work to overcompensate until we get to a place where so many of our community are not continuing to say, I haven't been seen, and people are being disappeared, and no one is listening, no one is hearing, and we're still under-resourced. We have to do the work, those of us who have an ability to figure out what different looks like, bring people in and give people a platform so that we don't go weeks or months or years without hearing what people need.
Yeah, thank you, Sky. I think a lot of what Sky says is exactly right. I also think that expertise, we hear that a lot, and there is expertise already in these communities. The idea that they don't have enough expertise, they don't have the capacity to hold the spaces that give them visibility also is a narrative change that we have to help change. So the wisdom, the unbelievable strength that is required of having a voice for a community is what's important. I do see though spaces where colleagues and friends and how we gain visibility is placing them in not just invitations, but seats where decisions are made, where there is power and an example that I can give is the Children's Cabinet. There are chairs for that cabinet, 187 stakeholders from both counties. When we first were designing it, it was immediate. We had directors of First Fives and county officials that wanted to be chairs. And it was intentional that I encouraged Lalofi to be a chair of the Basic Needs Committee alongside somebody sitting from the county department of the Children's Fund. But we need to find spaces where those voices and those spaces and those opinions from these small communities also are sitting in spaces where decisions are being made and the visibility of their communities are actually acknowledged, right? So I think anytime we can do that, it's an opportunity for us also to give grace to our fellow brothers and sisters.
Thank you, Susie. By the way, we haven't had a chance to talk about each of these individuals, so please find time to meet with them. They're incredible leaders. And in the case of Sky and Susie, leading collectives that are doing the important work of bringing multiple organizations and people across sectors, in the case of Susie, to focus on collective solutions.
I would say push philanthropy towards trust-based philanthropy as a practice. I say that because I jokingly say I've been doing that before it became a buzzword. I've been a philanthropy partner now for 9.5 years, and you know, my relationship with my partners are rooted in trust. So earlier, my conversations with Malik today was, who are the partners within your ecosystem? And having him root his relationships with the other organizations and trust for him to uplift those other partners gives me an idea of who else I should be keeping an eye on. Other areas that I think that are really important is building relationships with philanthropy serving organizations. The endowment doesn't have an office here in the IE. Most of my colleagues are based in LA. So we lean into Southern California grant makers to go on funder tours, to get a better idea of what's happening on the ground here in the landscape. And so I have been a part of funder tours where we bypassed and headed all the way out east towards the Coachella Valley. So leading into those relationships as well is really important, because if you can get on the radar Southern California grant makers, that's another opportunity to be introduced to other funders who are coming to the region or having an interest here. I think the other platform I would recommend is the Inland Empire Funders Alliance. There was a recent, we supported some funds towards the Emergent Needs Rapid Response Fund. And there's a lot of organizations here today that I don't think was on that initial list of their surveys of how are you reacting in this current federal landscape of the executive orders and other things that are coming down. So again, that's another opportunity. We're giving money towards this pool fund, but if you're not connected to it, you don't have access to those resources.
I think build each other up on this network. Wikipedia pages, we talked about that earlier. Your colleagues, make sure that it's legit. Paint that picture in the community of what your organization is doing. And then here's another thing, share the stories with elected officials. Invite them to your events. Constantly invite them to your events. Again and again, meet with them locally, the supervisors, the local city council members. We have a few electeds here. Your Sacramento electeds as well. And then lastly,
So say more about that. And how do you do that skillfully in the way you're trying
the way they want to know what's going on. If you're in the city or if you're in the county, invite them to API Heritage Month events. Invite them to Filipino Historical Month in October. Invite them to whatever week's happening in your community. If you have a parade, invite them. And if they can't make it, ask them for a video. Hey, we're gonna play this at our event or at your dinner, your inaugural dinner or your anniversary dinner. They want to know what's going on. Ask them for a certificate, right? They love giving certificates.
Yeah, some certificates and
So, and at the end of the day, share those stories with them. And if there's someone in the community that you can bring that has a story to share, bring that person to visit them in their office. Not just your assembly members and your Congress members, your local city council members. Don't be afraid to speak up during public comment. Like, hey, this is what's happening, right? And then lastly, try to get appointed to a local commission, a local board. There's so many leaders here. I think I like 5 or 6 of you I want to hit up right now and just say, hey, you need to apply to this commissioner position, mental health, public safety, any of these things locally, and then even statewide. There's websites, just Google it. And then when you get to those positions, you can share, hey, I'm on the board of this nonprofit, or I'm the executive director. These are important. And being, having that 30-second elevator pitch. So when you bump into Mark or Nicole, you can say, hey, this is what's going on. And they're stuck with that story.
Thank you, Ben. By the way, Ben, in addition to being on the ICF board, is part of the Attorney General's office and is extremely well connected. We'll get to the Sacramento question next, Ben. Right, but he's a tremendous resource, so please find your way to Ben in the networking section that will happen. Thank you, Ben.
I'm gonna flip that narrative and not just talk about inviting, but for those of you who are funders and those of you who represent the government, just come. You know, and the panel before us, we're already saying that. You know, I can tell you every single one of the organizations who are here, I've been to their events and developed those relationships. Because the expertise and priorities are not just the leaders who are here that represent them, it's their elders, their kids. I went to Malo's leadership retreat for their youth and talked to their youth. You know, and Island Grad talked to the other organizations who are there. So if you want to hear directly what their needs are and the priorities, be at their event, and they've already extended their invitation. So no need to keep asking you, just show up. You know, I do. So you.
Well, we're staying about the art, and so we're gonna ask about visibility and recognition in Sacramento. So we have the commission here from Sacramento and other three ties to Sacramento.
You know, so it's interesting, right? So PPFAA went to Sacramento last year, was recognized as a nonprofit organization, and it was great. But that was nominated, they were nominated by Corey Jackson, you know, and so, and it's great, and I'm so proud of them, been working with them. And so we want to know, like, okay, how do we get Malo to be the, you know, nonprofit organization, the Island Grad, there's all of these other organizations. But part of the reason why they were nominated, because Corey Jackson hosted annual roundtable with AAPI community. So he knew who was the shaker and the maker and what the difference they were making. So I'd love to be able to hear all of these other Sacramento people to host those roundtables in our community, not in Sacramento. We know all the work that they nominate them to be the nonprofit organization and make it to Sacramento, you know, so they could be recognized in Sacramento.
Great, thank you, Dr. Brown. I'll just say, y'all heard from Khadija Alam, the executive director. Malik, similar to what you said, she does the work, right? She's just not a figurehead. She just doesn't, right? I mean, she's there everywhere and making sure that our communities are being prioritized. So if you have not yet involved Khadija and her team, you're not doing the work in a savvy way. I'll just be very blunt, right? Because when Khadija talks to different state, part of her job is to talk to state agencies to make sure that all of our communities are being served. So often it might be local agencies. And yes, elected officials matter, of course, on the legislative side, but when it comes to implementation, she's essentially an extension of the governor's office. So that's really important to make sure that through the executive branch, that you have your advocate in Sacramento, making sure that different statewide agencies are serving us. So if you have not, everyone like Rush and Khadija at the same time, but we have Dee, we have Paige and others. So thank you. Over you. Because I think
we're doing the next.
I'm trying to, what's Sacramento? Please do to be more visible.
3 words: run for office. If you guys want the playbook, I ran the Asian Pacific American Leadership Foundation before it was a foundation. It was a project back in 2007 to 2012, and we did a candidate boot camp training, and we got so many APIs elected to statewide office. Right? All of these guys, and they didn't start off at the assembly. They started off appointed, right? Appointed public commissioner, public safety. You know, they ran for city council. They ran for school board. I think our friend over here, she needs to be a school board member somewhere. And I'll tell you right now, the only way you can get reputation is to be elected office. Quick story, Phil Ting is a budget chair. Well, in 2020, September, we're all sitting around and they said $16 million, that's all we're gonna give to this API stop the hate stuff. One of the guys at the table, I think I shared this with Carthy, he said, add extra zero to that. After some negotiation, it was like 1.59, 159 million, something crazy. API, they got 10 million of that. It doesn't happen unless Phil Ting is the budget chair of that, of the statewide assembly, budget. So that's how it's gonna happen. You know, that's how we're gonna get visibility. That's how we're gonna get recognition. And from these local offices, we're gonna run you statewide. We're gonna run you like Mark, nationwide, you know, for Congress. We should have so many commissions. Next time we convene, I'm running for this, I'm running for that. Call me. We have the playbook, right? We need to get.
I see a boot camp in the making.
The next week in San Francisco, next one's gonna be in a year. You know, we do this every other year, every year sometimes. But at the end of the day, that's the only way. Otherwise, we're not, forget sitting at the table, we're shut out of the building.
Thank you. And Mark, over to you.
Ben was so succinct with that run for office. Nonprofits and C3s, you're allowed to do lobbying. I mean, we don't fund it specifically, but you can still do it. That's why, you know, I love to give general operating support. I'm supporting your mission. If I can build a relationship with a nonprofit and understand who else is funding you, we could do a cost share and I can say I'm funding this and they're funding that, but we're not taking responsibility for the lobbying aspect. That's a way to get around that rule. I would say look into Alliance for Justice, voter advocacy, if you're still unsure about how your organization can do that type of work.
Older advocacy.
Yes, correct. You know, it's tough. It costs money to go to Sacramento, but there's district offices here. Build relationships with the district office, and if you have the ability or opportunity to link up with organizations that do statewide work, you know, you'll have that opportunity to go to Sacramento to really speak up on behalf of the AAPI.
So, I'm gonna change my hat, so I also sit on the board of DeKalb Nonprofits. It's a policy organization alongside Karthik. And honestly, 3 years ago, I thought, how does a Latina lady from the IE sit on a board like this? And there's people like Karthik and, you know, lawyers and heads of foundations that sit on that board. But I think a year into it, and then I was the co-chair of the policy committee, which is another crazy thing. But I said, where things happen is in policy. Where you can move the dial is in policy. And the confidence in seeing what's possible at the state level on behalf of a whole sector across the state of California. And the voice of IE, like me and Karthik were the only two from the IE sitting on that table, but I was the only one representing really small nonprofits, right? Like I could talk about, you know, you guys are talking about LA and San Francisco, but don't forget, it's the IE and we have budgets under 100,000. 67% of nonprofits in the IE are under 100,000. And then a new report, so we have new grant application things we can do on data. I would also say there is funding around civic engagement that's happening with the Funders Alliance here in the IE, a pooled fund that was allocated in October, starting to remember. 37 grantees looking at, power building organizations like Skies and others alongside nonprofits that had never been in the space of policy. And the idea was to have IECC to provide some capacity building around foster agencies or food or mental health services that never really sit in the space of policy, organizing and strategizing about how we're going to get people to vote, right? I think that work, and Sky's going to speak much more eloquently around that. This shouldn't just be a one-off because there's an election. It should be always. That's the standard we all have to work towards now, because our collective voices is really where we change what's going to happen in the IE.
Thanks, Susie. Before we go to Scott, I'll just say, Susie is someone who is humble to a fault, but I think that's also part of her charm. It's not always allows people who are powerful. And if you know Susie and how she moves and the trust that she has gained in multiple quarters, if you are not yet part of her ecosystem, you should be asking how you can get on her radar in 96. So thank you, Susie, for that.
Yeah, I want to echo a couple things. So if you are interested in doing more civic engagement work, we should have conversations. As United is it is a collective, we are a coalition structure, and we do a lot with other nonprofits in terms of trying to support and coordinate joint civic engagement activity so that we can all further our region together. So that's explicitly part of the work that you want to be doing or are doing. But we don't know each other, let's get to know each other, because I would like to collaborate. Just to piggyback on some of the things that were said, I was also going to echo that, yes, Sacramento it's accessible because of Ontario Airport, but it's not affordable necessarily to be going up and down all the time. But folks that, our legislators that are in Sacramento have district offices, so we can make meetings while they're here with their staff or with them directly when they come back into the district and either share your story, share your priorities, or have conversations specifically about certain bills, and you can have conversation, figure out like how much lobbying you're able or not able to do. Or you can collaborate with folks who have the ability to do lobbying on your behalf and let them know what should be uplifted for you. So that's definitely an opportunity, if going to Sacramento doesn't feel accessible or realistic, that would be a really great way that's far more accessible, a lot more tangible, but to still be in communication with the people that are in Sacramento representing you. And similarly, same thing can be done much easier with our local elected officials, different structurally, but they're still supposed to serve us all. So we gotta make sure that they know what we need and they know who we are and they know what we want them to be doing. On the boards and commissions front, we're actually planning on facilitating a training later this year. So that folks like us, what does it even look like to get on the board or commission? Like, yes, it's appointed, it's not elected, so like there's that piece, but how do you get on the radar? How would you set yourself to do that? What do you do when you're there? We're gonna create space to go for that later in the year. Don't have specifics yet. There's a lot of crises going on in this moment that we're thinking about, but definitely in the fall, winter. We want to figure out how to make that more accessible to people like us in this room so that it includes us too on those commissions and can be a pipeline to higher office. So that's an opportunity there. And I would also like to continue to be in conversation with folks about these narrative pieces that really not specifically brought up in terms of all communities can't be spoken to the same ways. So, we understand that policy is important and that our local and state legislators have a lot to do in terms of how our systems and communities are set up. But as much as we want to speak on behalf of our communities, we also want to empower our communities to speak up for themselves too. And how does that look like in a culturally responsive way? Like having deeper conversations together as, with trusted messengers with each other, with us, like maybe not everyone needs to be doing the canvassing if it's not in the capacity of your interest, but what should that look like in order to reach people that we're trying to reach? Or you do want to do that work, but need more of an on-ramp, so you can get to that place and have those conversations. But there's, we're just as you were saying earlier, this entire region, we have a lot of overcompensating to do in order to get us to a place where we're all supported, which opens up an opportunity to all work together and figure out how can I fill some of your gaps, how can you fill some of mine, how do we unite together to do more? So I want to invite that, kind of skipping to the next question, but I think there's already been collaborating.
Exactly. Yeah, so the last question was, what are the things that you commit to? Scott's already extended the invitation, right, and the commitments. By the way, I United has what C3 and C4.
We have a C3, C4, state PAC, and a federal PAC.
All right. And
Only so much capacity, just like everybody else, but we do have tax status.
it's like a Swiss
And
Army,
willingness.
yeah, it's like a Swiss Army knife of civic engagement. But that's important because you never know when you need different capacity. So some of you may have seen in Orange County.
If you're not sure what falls within a C3, because we have to know what goes up to the line, we've served that technical assistance capacity in the past, and we're happy to continue to play that role.
Two key things I'll say. I United, the data that is like for your work and it keeps improving is so critical, but that's also where community partnerships can play a huge role.
Yes.
Right, in terms of improving your work, etc.
Yes, we actually have the very unique and extreme privilege of having a software engineer on staff who's built us a custom data system that he can regularly just update because he's brilliant. But what that offers us is the same tool that if any of y'all were part of census organizing or redistricting organizing as a collective. It's the same system. So we have the ability to text, phone bank, canvas, collect petitions. We used it to draw maps. We're adding in so many things there, but it's the voter file that we own. So it's your data. You can also upload your membership list and use that as a system to text and phone bank people, let them know about things going on in the community. But it's built locally and operated locally, and all of the data that you put into it is yours. So the idea is to kind of democratize access to these platforms so that people don't have to pay whatever the price is for PDI, which is getting more and more expensive in order to do that work. Social media is great and we need to use it for certain things, but increasingly in dangerous times, we really don't want to be posting all of the know your rights stuff on social media. But if we have something like this where we can upload our list and then just send text messages or call people or do more interpersonal things to keep people safe while we're trying to share the good information, that's something that we would be able to cover the cost of, but allow access for. So that's a resource. That
Yeah, so just think about, it's like data infrastructure power, right? Like that is, it's not sexy, but it's so important. And I'll just give the example in Orange County, right, with their parent race. When it came time for that recount, where it was a game of like fractions of inches, community expertise came through in an important way to identify voters, right, and to validate those votes. So you never know when you need help, and this is why even if you're not a formal member of United, this is part of my hope, is that through this relationship building, and like Sky was there during census, we reached out to many of you, specifically to make sure our communities got counted. So this is something that I hope can be an important kind of relationship strengthening exercise. Yeah, okay, let's go to Susie next. Susie, what can ICC commit to moving forward to increase visibility and power for ADS?
Yeah, I think right now leveraging some of the funding ICC just received, we were recipient of some runway to do some work around workforce development and technical assistance around AI. Ryan's in the room, Joseph's in the room for my team, but there's a whole list of technical assistance that's going to be available. And I think I can announce it. We also received a grant from the governor's office around Jobs First, Catalyst funding. We were one of the recipients of Catalyst. So I might get into what you're saying that out loud, but I got a letter. That allows us though to provide to, many of the panel members that were saying, we don't have the capacity, we need help on the back end, we need help on our financials, on our board governance, on our compliance issues, on all of that. Our hope is customizing that on your behalf, listening to what we know, what's hearing about that. I also, on another side, because of the California endowment, have allowed us to become a local fiscal agent. That would allow us to sit and do the back end for all of you. Yeah, and your HR, your payroll, your all the rest of it, and you can do the important work you do. So it is untraditional fiscal, as that we also want to have it paired with capacity building so that you can be strong, and when you need to move on, as we hope you do, that you will have all the infrastructure in place in order to stand alone and be strong. So.
Susie. All right, Mark, I mean, I have one more month left on the company endowment board, so. Other than supporting the AAPI fund that's gonna be launched, Mark, what else? I think we need to yeah, but what else, I know the endowment's already doing quite a bit, but what can you commit to, Mark, as a person? You already showed the way that you show up, what can you commit to folks here today?
Yeah, so in addition to Catalyst California, I sit on the board of Catalyst of San Diego and Ontario counties. And they were the statewide stop AAPI gate for the San Diego and Ontario region. So shout out to AAPI for Henry family for OC and the IDE. I think for myself, being in just these funder spaces, I sit on the funders network, it's a national board. There are other AAPI, executives and foundations that I can speak to. one being from the Sierra Health Foundation. So I can talk to her and share this information, but internally at TC, I can share this with our South Region team. We have an internal work group on AAPI. We can share that with them as well. We can reach out to you and Lisa, and maybe come and do a presentation virtually for our partners there. But, you know, I was jokingly sharing earlier that, you know, I've been in the IE 3 consecutive weeks now. Plan for next week, so there's something happening. I gotta talk to my scheduler. But the jokes aside, I think that it's important for funders to be in space, in the community. Like Karthik said, you know, I want to be there for our partners. I want to build a relationship with you. I want to understand the challenges that you're facing. You trust me enough to be your thought partner. We figure it out together. I'm not a punitive funder. If things didn't work out and you couldn't achieve your outcomes, my first question would be, what did you learn? Or what happened? How are you going to pivot and adapt to these changing conditions? So that's how I approach the work. You know, like I mentioned earlier, I've been here for 9.5 years of the endowment. Nobody's yelled at me yet. But just honored to be in this space with you all, and thank you for having me here.
And looking committee, going to boot camp, I think we heard that.
The ID specific boot camp, right? The AAPI fund, the API fund, committed to that, committed to raising money. For a lot of the nonprofits who don't understand the process in California, you have to have a RCT status that's current. For our folks, sometimes it's delinquent.
Okay, please explain.
Registry of Charitable Trust. That's a major issue for our communities. Get my number. My team directly works with that part of the DOJ.
In the attorney, right?
Yeah, it's like you own your car, you pay the car, but you have to register it with the state, right? Own your nonprofit, all that stuff. You have to register it with the state. You have to file your form 900, you have all your stuff. Even if you have a IRS, you know, EIN, all that stuff, you have to be registered in the state. That affects your funding if you're delinquent. So you're gonna call our office, and sometimes you haven't paid your dues in 5 years. We can help you. We can not fast track, but like speed it up a little bit, flag it, you know, and then for, you know, like the stop hate grants, we get 0 out here. That we're able to do. We have to go to Africa, Marianne over there. So I can commit to that as well. And then, you know, bringing local electeds out here. Some of you guys don't know, the governor's staff for external affairs is based in IE. Our state manager, which is me for the care team, community awareness response engagement. I live here. I raise my kids here, right? I'm based in the IE, you know, so I'm committed to bringing the governor here, or the attorney general, whoever we need to bring out here, call me, you know, for your events. We did the first ever Office of Gun Violence Prevention roundtable in San Bernardino. Attorney General here, he inaugurated Mayor Tran when she first got elected. He came out here, so we're here. Use us. We're here.
So, as most of you know, the behavioral health transition, the Mental Health Services Act transition to behavioral health. And our Affidavit Alliance is funded under the cultural competency. So the future of that coalition is questionable because then we don't know, like funding wise, the priority of the Behavioral Health Services Act is going to shift away from prevention, away from marginalized community. So my goal before I retire, which I hope in a year's time, is to be able to find outside funding for the Freedom Alliance, because that is the coalition that's already been built for the past decade, and so there's no need to like start over. So we're really trying to expand that Freedom Alliance to do a lot of the other work that you all, you know, because we have built those different relationships. And so, and then of course, you know, my other commitment is to promote all of the upcoming events. So all the flyers are up here. Island Grad next weekend, our Freedom Alliance Hope event. We're focusing on the climate crisis and the impact on our mental health. And so that's coming up also because if you already heard AAPI and all of that, so we are taking that on as an issue. So yeah, come support all of our different events. So a lot of the organizations put out the flyers.
Excellent. Thank you. Okay, so That's to stay here because I want to take the photos, but a couple of announcements before we do. So one of the things many of you have been admiring the tote bags that we have and some of the stickers. And those were developed by a design contest that we ran a little over a year ago. And right now, when you talk about young people, you don't need to be young. This is a design contest that is open to all. Yeah. There's the big doors. And so the deadline is at the end of May. May, as many of you may know, is Asian American Native Hawaiian Pacific Islander Month. So we want to inspire people. Well, we want them to show their most compelling designs under the theme of power in numbers, right? And so we encourage you to share it, or if you do have a creative streak within you, throw your hat in the ring, and we will feature your work. In addition to featuring it in our merch, we also do a profile and drive traffic to whatever social account the artist uses, and it's $5 cash prize, which might not be a lot, but for especially early stage graphic designers, it's both the exposure as well as the. So that's one announcement. I already mentioned AB 1186. Please take a look. That's Patel's bill on data infrastructure and data disaggregation. Next slide, please. The Wikipedia narrative campaign, right? So it's actually not a joke at all. Like for me, I recognize the power of this when I've served on various boards. The vice chair of a national board that I served on said something to me in passing. She's like, "Oh, we can't all be like you." I was like, "Yeah, Wikipedia." She's like, "Yeah, how many people have Wikipedia entries?" And it was not solicited, like someone as part of diversifying academics of Wikipedia did a project to make sure that women and people of color have better representation on Wikipedia, right? And like, I've written 7 books, and I probably should have been on Wikipedia, but I never even thought about it. But that's the difference it makes. It means that your organization, your communities, will be higher ranked when it comes to search algorithms, and increasingly in the world of AI, it will be seen as being reputable. But it is a bar that you need to clear, right? And so as Judy said, make sure you use proper citation principles. Because the editors of Wikipedia, they're harsh. Like they will knock things out, they will kill things immediately if they don't see that it meets a certain bar in terms of notability or having reliable sources that undergird that. But it's not an insurmountable task. And what we have done here is, so with the Ibarra who used to become our team, and I helped build a toolkit to make you more adept in doing that for your community partners. So this is something that collectives should be doing to give each other an opportunity. Next slide. And finally, so you already heard, so Island Grad is like in full force here today. So please show up for their amazing event next Saturday, May 3rd. And then Judy, you said you wanted to announce something, so. Okay, that's, do it for Judy, folks. You gotta show up to the one at the top right. So,
can we add to that?
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, so the right-hand announcement there is a presentation by Jocelyn Yao. A lot of our discussion has been about being seen, being at the table, and being involved. So next Thursday evening, will be a talk by Jocelyn Yao, a council member and mayor of from the city of Eastvale. Yeah. He got elected at age 23. The 4 other council members are white males. So it tells you the changing demographics of her community and the rest of the IE. So, and Karthik, I appreciate all that I've heard. I appreciate the spirit I'm hearing here today. But there will be a nice discussion about Jocelyn's new book, Voting with Mom. She's a single mother. She has chosen to write a book about voting. And that is something that's really important to all of us. Get our family members, get our peers, everybody out there to be engaged. He chose to do that, and we should go out and support people like that.
Thank you so much. And we have to keep the momentum going, right? So not just this event, I think as Lisa said, should be the first of many. Judy, let's go to you on
Okay,
this
sorry,
place.
just last thing. No, that it's part of the programming by Yolanda Institute. So it's not just AAPI folks. This is a regional, local organization who's done things that I think you don't see in that many places. You kind of expect it out of LA, you kind of expect it in larger areas. But this is Yolanda Institute who knows writing and authorship at all levels and all kinds of
Part of
literature.
the mainstream, we are part of the mainstream.
And it will be up across the street, up on the third level of the Riverside Public Library in downtown Branch.
Okay, thank you. And then final thing I'll say, so I'm gonna go back a little bit to history here. As we think about, we saw Mayor Tran, right, we saw the council member from Eastville. When we look at Asian American history, so not only do we have Asian American history in terms of a lot of this region. The first Asian American elected to Congress came from inland Southern California. Right? The lip sync sound. And talk about an inspiring story. So this is the kind of thing which is like, you can't really slack off on democracy here, because the lip sync sound story, I mean, by the way, there's a portrait of them that hangs in kind of a major chamber in Congress for its historic efforts. So this is a person who was not eligible for citizenship, right? Asians were not eligible to naturalize until World War II, first for Chinese Americans and then for Filipinos and Indian Americans in 1948, I want to say. And Sound worked with Filipinos to get the right to naturalize for South Asians and for Filipinos. Becomes a citizen as quickly as he can, and then he runs for what was then called the judge, but it's like, essentially, it's like a county supervisor seat. And he won, but then was disqualified because he needed to be a citizen for 2 years. And he hadn't been a citizen for 2 years. So then he runs again. And then within 2 years after that, becomes elected to Congress, I believe in 1950. Right? And so that's incredible. It's incredible for our region, it's incredible for the South Asian community, it's incredible for the Asian American community. So lest we think that it's an impossible task for us to empower ourselves. It's been done before under far more trying circumstances. That was the era of McCarthyism. When he won, he ran. When he ran, and he won. So hopefully that can serve as an inspiration from then and even earlier to today, so that we can support each other, we got each other's backs, make sure that the revolution is funded, right? But to also just make sure that we are here to take care of each other during the time of struggle, so that we can push for better days ahead. Thank you, everyone, and